All right, today we're going to talk about the three biggest fears that flight instructors have when training new students. So let's get into it. All right, so like I said, we're talking three biggest fears flight instructors have when we're training new students. I put out there like some questions for some people on the interwebs. I got a lot of feedback, and I was able to kind of narrow it down to the three biggest ones that I came across from lots of people all over the country that are flight instructors. So the biggest one, well, these are in no particular order, but we'll call it fear number one is missing a requirement or messing up an endorsement. Why? Why is that a fear? Well, one, we failed at our jobs. And I'm going to here to tell you, we're human. We make mistakes too. We are not perfect. So things happen. So maybe, and I'm talking like you're not going to miss a requirement like, oh, we didn't do this long cross country, or like, it would be like, oh, hey, maybe this cross country wasn't far enough. Maybe it wasn't long enough. You're talking smaller mistakes like that. Could the bigger mistakes be made? Sure. Or I didn't print out an endorsement and sign it the right way. Or I hand wrote the endorsement and I missed a word or something like that. That is a fear for us as flight instructors, because if we mess that up somewhere, it's going to get caught in the check ride, and some DPEs will let us correct that error right then and there. Some errors can't be corrected right then and there. And that just costs you, the flight student, money. So that's why it's a big fear of flight instructors out there. We want to make sure we get things right, because otherwise, if we mess something up, it's going to cost you money. And we don't want to do that to you. We don't want to waste money over something that could have been prevented for you. So that is a pretty big fear that flight instructors have for their students out there. Is we don't want to cost you that extra money, because, hey, we're human. We make mistakes too, but we do everything we can to avoid it. Fear number two for flight instructors is that we forget to pass on some type of knowledge onto our students as we're going through. And again, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about flight instructors that actually care. There's flight instructors out there that they only care about the hours in their logbook. There's flight instructors out there that care deeply for their students. You can have the hour counter that does care deeply for their students, but it is very rare. But again, you want to know what type of instructor it is, and they're going to care for you. But you want to know everything that they know. The goal for me as a flight instructor is to make you better than me. I want the student to become the master. That's the way I teach and the way I train my students. But there's always a fear that when you move on to a new rating or something, we come back and go, oh shoot, there's something small but that can save your life that I forgot to pass on to you. One of the ones that I use that was never really passed on to me in my training, I learned afterwards from other instructors, is the 50-70 rule. You want to be at 70% of your rotation speed by 50% use of the runway. So that way, if you're not there, you know you're having an issue, you have time to slow down and get off the runway and not really bend any metal or have any issues. But it's small things like that that are going to kind of stick with you and help you throughout your flying career, whether it's recreationally or professionally. You're going to want to have all that. So a fear for a lot of instructors is forgetting to pass on those little nuggets of information that might not be built into an actual lesson plan to help you be a safe and competent pilot as you go throughout your training. So that's fear number two, is forgetting to pass on those small little things to our students as we go through training. Fear number three, and this is pretty much unanimous across the industry, is that something happens to our student. Now, accidents do happen. Metal does get bent. Again, everyone is human. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm not immune to that, just like you're not immune to that, nor anyone else. But that is a big fear that flight instructors have, especially early on in your training. That sign off for that first solo to send you up to go let you fly the plane without me the very first time, that is a huge fear for almost every single flight instructor out there. And that is not a fear that goes away with time. If we've done our job, we've provided you with the proper training. Yes, we have a level of confidence, which is why we signed you off. But we also know that when you're going up, hey, anything can happen. And the last thing we want to do is have metal bent or you possibly not come home or anything like that. So we do everything we can in our training to set you up for success and put you in the best position possible. But there's always that nugget of fear of something happening to one of our students. And it doesn't matter if it happens on that first solo or 3,000 hours down the road into your career. If you've signed a student off and you've trained a student and they go on and they fly for the airlines or something like that, and something happens, a good instructor that cares for their students is going to feel that just as much. And you're going to reflect on those type of things. Sure, I might not have trained you to fly the 737, but hey, I trained you as a private pilot. And something happens and you go out there and you bend metal and hopefully you're lucky enough to walk away, I'm still going to feel that as your instructor. And you're going to feel the same way about your instructors too as a student. Recently there was that transmedic jet that crashed in Philadelphia. And before anything came out about anything, I immediately texted a pilot that was one of my instructors that works for that company to make sure it wasn't them that was on board that plane that night. Because again, we end up caring for each other. It is a small community. We do get to know most people. But again, you develop that care for people. And as an instructor, it's a higher level of care because that's your student. You're installing kind of skills into that person. So you want to make sure that you do things the right way, you teach them the right way, and then again, you're going to feel it if something bad happens to them, whether it's now or down the line. And you as the student, you're going to feel the same way about your instructors, especially if you come across one and you have one that cares deeply for you and you can tell that, you're going to care for them too, and you're definitely going to be in a situation where you're going to care about what happens to them, and you're going to do exactly what I did. Immediately send that text message to see if it was them or not, because you're going to be worried for your instructor or for your student or anything like that. So that's all I have for this video, going over just 3 top fears that flight instructors have for their students. So if you enjoyed this video, check out this one here on the screen, and I'll see you next time.